Hello, I'm local democracy reporter Emma Draper, and I've been finding out more about the new social housing income threshold and what the impact of that will be on residents, tenants, and local authorities. I've been speaking to Chair of Douglas Council's Housing Committee, Devon Watson.
Thresholds for social housing last rose in 2017 and last rose in 2019 using 2017 data. And costs have increased for a lot of people. And a lot of people now who may have been doing well on 30 grand a year or 31 grand a year may be severely struggling, and they may require access to social housing. In general, as a council, we've been asking for a more systematic approach to link social housing with living wage and the general need of the population. And we think that there's still a lot more balancing that needs to be done, but this is a long overdue move, and in principle, we support large parts of it.
What does this increase mean for local authorities?
This increase will probably increase waiting lists for social housing. A lot more people are going to require social housing, and a lot more people are going to sort of respond to that market demand and jump onto the waiting lists. And we've got people there who severely need housing, who may have disabilities, may live in poverty, some people who are homeless, who we need to rehouse, and they're going to be competing on that list with a new entrance onto that list, which is why simply increasing thresholds, which is something that a government department can do for free, doesn't make up for the fact that we've got a critical shortage of social housing. So this increased pressure placed on local authorities will require us to build a lot more social housing. And there is no way of avoiding that crucial fact that while rents continue to rise and housing grows increasingly unaffordable, we need a lot more social housing, and it needs to be built yesterday.
And is the council prepared for this larger amount of people that are going to be on the waiting list?
Yeah, 100%. As a council, we are prepared for it, and we anticipate a growth in numbers. We anticipate more people coming to us and asking for assistance. And the hardest thing to do is, because we've got a limited stock, to say, hey, you might have to wait for a few years before you finally get a social house. So, and by that time, people might be moved off the list. So it's critical that the government works with local authorities, works with housing providers, and works with charities to solve the housing crisis. And there's a lot of small adjustments you can make here or there, but ultimately the housing crisis is caused by a lack of housing supply. And the only way out of it is to build more housing and bring down the cost of rents.
How worried is the council about people staying in social housing longer than is anticipated because of this? Obviously, there are rising costs of living still impacting people, and rents are still going up, and mortgages obviously now are going up too. Do you think that people will be staying in the social housing that they are already in longer?
I think that it would be, to push someone out of a social housing house if they are struggling, or if they are just on median income, into the sort of wild west that is a private rental market, isn't something we ever want to do. But there is already a program that reevaluates people every 5 years. If people do require the housing, they remain in that housing. And if they don't require that housing, then we work with those families to look at different options as to how we can adjust rents, how we can sort of help them find somewhere else, or sort of keep them within that housing if that is required. But generally, we take a pragmatic approach, and we approach things on a case-by-case basis. The council cares about its tenants, and it cares about their welfare.
So for Douglas Council specifically then, will this make it easier or harder for people to get on the council's waiting list?
If you are someone who has an income that is suddenly included within this, it'll make it easier to get on the waiting list. If you're already on the waiting list, you might have to compete with people who've just come on. So in general, it's going to increase waiting lists, which is going to put pressure on offices, it's going to put pressure on staff, and it's going to put pressure on the people who are waiting and who desperately need a affordable home, which is why the central government needs to work with local councils to build a lot more social housing. Our housing stock has fallen as a proportion of the total housing within the city and within the island as a whole. So we need to increase those numbers to bring it back up to parity to sort of deal with the housing crisis.
So would you work then with the government to build more social housing?
The council has submitted plans, and we require government approval in order to build more social housing. This is something that we are desperate to do, and we're trying to make sure that the quality of that social housing also increases. It's not simply enough to increase the total amount of stock if quality then falls. So it's about getting that balance right, and that's something that we're really keen to do. But yeah, so as a council, we're very keen to work with government to build a lot more social housing, and that's the only way in which we're going to solve the housing crisis and keep some young people left on the island. They're not publicly available yet. We require approval from the DOI first before we can sort of publish those. But we are keen. I mean, I think that if anyone wants to chat to councillors or chat to anyone in the housing committee, they can also get in touch with me. And we're keen to sort of expand the housing stock. So there's a range of options and a range of people have different needs. So we are going to have to build a lot more apartments. I mean, housing, like the individual household size has fallen to an average of 2.2 people per household in Douglas in general. So we need to get a lot more housing for like young people or people who want to be closer to the city centre. But at the same time, we also need some bungalows for people who are older, have mobility issues. So there's a range of housing types that we're looking to expand into. And yeah, increasing our stock is a core priority of us.
So you're the council's of the opinion then that needs to be building up rather than out?
Yeah, no, 100%. So we want to sort of integrate our housing with modern architectural practices that sort of emphasize building communities that are human scale and human centric. And that means there's sort of building communities in which you can access local amenities nearby. And we can see this with the Peel Road apartments. They're high quality, affordable apartments that are the best quality housing you can get on the Isle of Man relative to price, and they're walking distance to all needed amenities. And we just want to sort of replicate that successful approach again and again moving forward. We've recently moved the last of people out of Lord Street. We're going to be getting... we really want to deal with old derelict stock we have and replace it with better high-tech state-of-the-art stock that we can see in sort of developments like Peel Road or the apartments that will soon be constructed in Williston.
And what's going on with those Ord Street flats at the moment? Are they still empty, or are people still living on them?
Those are empty now, and we are working to find a range of options to sort of how can we best use this asset in future and sort of get it used as housing once again. Yeah, just want to emphasize that a good move to sort of make social housing a lot more accessible. It should be accessible to working and middle earners, but this is not enough, and we need to be building a lot more social housing to deal with the waiting lists we already have.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Little Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.